statement. Okay. As chair of the Hampton Falls School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Hampton Falls School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 646-876-9923 and webinar ID 841-4530-9734, or by clicking on the following website address: https://us02web Zoom US/J/841-4530-9734. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access this meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have been provided on the website of the SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-926-8992 extension 103 or email at revans@sau21.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by a roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking the roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether anyone is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Can we now take the roll call vote, please?
Greg Parrish.
Present, family in and out.
Jason Feria.
Present, family in and out.
Jill Swayze.
Present, families around.
John Bailey.
Present, family in and out.
Anthony Lang.
Present, family in and out.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking that vote. I'm sorry, I'm going to do this. I apologize. Deborah, who are you?
I am Dr. Hobbs and Dr. Eric Kellyan's administrative assistant at the SVU.
Okay, and you will be being our secretary tonight?
I will be being your secretary tonight.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I should have said something. Sorry, Greg.
No
Deb's done a
worries.
couple of number of meetings for us, and you forget which board she's done.
Nope, that's fine. So I guess, Matt, do I turn it over to you or Bill?
Yes. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us for the budget review. I appreciate the time that you undoubtedly spent reviewing the many documents we've provided. So in board docs, we have included a number of budget materials that includes the principal's narrative, an Excel sheet that outlines each account by line item with historicals, as well as with past years expenditure and budget history, as well as our proposed budget, enrollment information. We have the budget worksheets for each account. We have a PowerPoint that summarizes the entire budget, and then some additional supplemental information that includes federal grant information, our salary schedules, any cost of living adjustments, the history there, as well as our expendable trust information. So, so when we, so this is our proposed, the administration's proposed budget for the school board, and at the end of this process, the budget becomes the school board's budget that will be presented to the community. So as we go through this, so we're gonna go page by page through the budget. If there are any school board changes, you would make a motion and vote on that change as a board. So we in previous years, sometimes we'd vote on every department, but I would suggest we only vote if there's a change. And then at the end of the process, we'll vote on the bottom line budget. And that's the budget that will bring forth to the community. So before we get into the actual budget, I just want to make a few notes. So as always, our number one priority when developing the budget is to provide for the resources and services to operate the school and to provide for optimal learning opportunities and experiences for our students. That's our number one priority, but an equal priority or secondary priority is our responsibility to our taxpayers and to be fiscally responsible and to provide a budget that that is does take into account our taxpayers. So I think we all understand that we're in a pandemic, that we are in the midst of an economic crisis. We have families within our community that are struggling financially, and our town will see a decline in tax revenue. So keeping that in mind, we took great care this year, and we really took made some hard decisions to bring forth the most fiscally responsible budget that we could, while not sacrificing our core mission to our students. And we feel that we feel that this budget reflects that. We're continuing our some of our main priorities as far as our STEM program, as far as enhancing our school culture and climate through social emotional learning, as well as continuing with our competency-based learning, all the while being able to maintain operations of the school in a safe and clean manner. So, we're bringing forth a budget that has a 1.33% reduction from prior year. It's just over $92,000 lower than last year's budget. And keep in mind, this last year's budget, we brought forth a 0.75% increase. So, I'm happy to report that, I'm sure you've received your tax bills, but there should have been a reduction in residential taxes based, partially due to the reductions we've made and the funds that we have returned to the town. So this, we really took great care in this budget process. We also took great care this past spring to minimize expenditures, and we did return $341,000 to the town from the Hampton Falls budget, and then another $76,000 allocated from the Winnicott budget that was returned to the town this at the end of this last fiscal year. And we're continuing in that manner of fiscal responsibility. This budget is actually $28,000, just over $28,000 less than the default budget. And as you know, the default budget, so we propose a budget that goes to ballot. Should that budget fail, then it goes to the default budget. And the default budget is defined as the prior year's budget plus or minus any contractual or legally mandated costs, it's reduced by any one-time expenditures or any elimination of positions. So the fact that we're proposing a budget under the default budget, I think, is really indicative of the work and the care that we took in this budget process. I want to take this moment to thank our leadership at Lincoln Ackerman. I'll tell you, you have some amazing leaders with Principal Beth Rossi and Director of Special Services Melissa McKeon. They, not only do they put students first and just offer and provide an amazing experience for our students, but they also, that's reflected in the budget. So thank you to both Beth and Melissa. They had to make some hard decisions in this budget because there's always trade-offs. As we go through this budget, I just want you to take note of a few items. There was one large increase that was a result of the New Hampshire retirement system increasing employer contributions for retirement, and that was an increase of 3.22% for teachers and 2.89% for all their employees, and that resulted in an $84,000 increase to this retirement line item. That's a huge amount. Unfortunately, the state, didn't properly fund our pension obligations and kind of kicked the can down the road. This is decades in the making, and now they're finally trying to claw back that pension fund obligation. And that's reflected in this budget. And now towns are responsible for this shortfall. And you'll see this across the entire state because this isn't just Hampton Falls and this isn't just schools. This is police, this is fire. These are town municipal budgets are all getting hit with this huge increase in retirement. Additionally, we do have some special education transportation costs in excess of $43,000. But obviously we made some reductions to offset those increases. We are seeing some savings in technology equipment because we had that one-time investment in our wireless upgrade project, and now it's last year, so this year it's reverted back to normal spending levels. And then we are reducing our personnel, so we're eliminating a full-time classroom teacher position. We're eliminating a educational associate, and we're reducing 2 positions from 100% to a 60% position. That would be the school psychologist and the case manager, or a case manager position. And that's resulted in savings in salaries as well as health insurance. So that's kind of an overall view of this budget. We took a hard look at every supplies account. We have been able to, we didn't exhaust some of our supplies this past spring because we weren't remote. So we were able to recognize some savings there and move it into this school year. But every discretionary account we took a hard look at. You'll see that most accounts are level funded or reduced. So of the 19 departments, we have a decrease in 12 of them. So we really took this this task seriously because this is a serious crisis economically, and we want to bring forth a budget that that not only provides for our students but for our community.
Hey, Matt, can I just add one thought to that?
Yes.
Yeah. So the only thing I want to say to what Matt just laid out exceptionally well is, and I think this is the and to that, and in particular, I think John and Greg will remember this. This is consistent with commitments that we made to the community last year. Right? We were asked a number of questions in deliberative last year about the declining student enrollment, and the kinds of recommendations that some people thought we should have made last year. We didn't, but which we knew because we had these discussions with the administration and then with the board last year, that if those enrollment trends continued, there would be these changes. So, I don't think this should be. I mean, obviously, things have changed in some interesting ways since, but some of those sort of major categories of personnel changes are consistent with the conversations that we had with the community last year. Thanks,
Yeah,
Matt.
every year we do a staffing analysis, and we take a look at our enrollments and our needs. And I mean, we're at, well, this current year is an anomaly. You have to throw this year out the window. But we did take a look at our current enrollment numbers. We reached out to families and made projections for next year, because we reached out to homeschooled students, we reached out to students that may have gone private, to see who would be returning, and we are projecting, probably in the 205 student level, that range, and these are the proper staffing levels for that number of students. We'd be making these recommendations, those staffing recommendations, whether there was an economic crisis or not. I mean, that has no bearing on it. I just want to emphasize how, obviously there are some outside factors involved here, and we need to be responsible to our community. So prior to going into the budget, does anyone have any questions? I know we have 3 new board members who have not gone through this process.
Excuse me, Matt, before we go any further, can I update the public on something? Rhonda is just overseeing us, but Deborah is replacing Rhonda tonight. So if any of the public has any issues with their connections or the meeting or connectivity, can you reach out to Deborah? And her email is dtuite@sau21.org. And her phone number is 603-391-6260. Thanks, Matt. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Greg. All right. Well, if there are no questions, we'll get right into the budget. And so what the process is I briefly touched upon it, is we have budget worksheets that outline the entire budget, every single account. There's, it outlines what we're proposing, and then some narrative as to what's included in that account, why we're asking for the funds. So we'll go page by page, run through the budget, and I'll try to make this as quick as possible, but please interrupt me if you have any questions, if you have any suggested changes. Like I said, this is a pretty lean budget. It's pretty straightforward. We're not requesting any major investments or initiatives in this budget, but please speak up if you have any questions or any comments. So I will share my screen and we'll get started. All right. Everyone see that? I think that is a yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So we're starting off with regular education. On the first page is it's actually page 2, is salaries for certified staff. This is the account for our teachers. So we are proposing a budget of $1,652,330. And this does reflect the reduction of 1 classroom teacher.
Okay. I'll start with that one, Matt.
Yep.
I do. Bill, you're right. Last year and the year before even, I think, we had some of our public ask us about enrollment versus our teaching staff. I do have concern about this. Some of my concerns have to do with the current situation, both statewide with COVID, as well within the district. I'll start with the COVID component. We don't know where this is going, and we could be starting next year in the 21-22 school year under the same umbrella, having to come up with a way to get our kids in school. So my first question has to do with just that. If we eliminate this position, will we still be able to get these kids in school? Because I don't want to sit here in August saying, well, we got to find somebody, or now we have an issue because we're down a staff member. How would this elimination affect that?
So first of all, this budget reflects the budget assumption that we're going to be in school in person next year, without COVID restrictions. So that's throughout the entire budget. It does not account for, it's making the assumption that we're in a normal school year. So the staffing levels are based on, I mean, they're based on what's appropriate for our individual class levels. Now, should we be in a situation where we have COVID extends into the next year, fall of 2021, we would obviously have to make adjustments. I'm confident from a budget perspective that we would be able to make those changes, and if need be, we would look at potentially hiring a teacher if that was necessary. I don't think that's necessary with our enrollments the way they are, because you'd also see a corresponding decrease in enrollment from what we're projecting based on these. It'd be similar to this year, right?
Sure.
So I'm confident that this is the proper staffing levels. Now, Beth, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, I actually have another question, Matt. Does this bottom line figure reflect the retirements we have received?
So we've received a few retirements now. So there's
Matt, which will be on the next board meeting. So we have a December 1st deadline.
Right.
And we've received some number across the SAU and certainly within this school. And those will be on your next agenda to accept.
Okay, so I'm assuming that with a retirement of someone who's been here for quite a lengthy time and probably at the top of the salary scale, that will probably come in at Masters 4 is.
So we budget for Masters 8 for any vacancy, but it's for the year one, it's a wash because we have a retirement stipend that we have to pay out. Okay. So we won't adjust the budget based on the retirement. What we'll see is the next year we'll likely see a savings because typically when there are retirements, they're close to the top of the schedule, like you said. And when you hire someone, it's usually lower. So then you recognize that savings. But year one, we per the CBA, there's a retirement stipend that we pay out, and typically it's essentially a wash from a cost standpoint.
Greg, can I let me try your question. It's a good question, but it's a very difficult question to answer.
Absolutely.
Right? So the assumption's based on, as Matt said, that we're open and back in person, and that's how he and principals have built every budget. If we're still in a situation where we're doing the kind of triage that Beth and other principals are doing now, I mean, the other side of the ledger is we don't know what additional federal monies that there will be, and there will certainly be, if we're into this kind of mode for another year, there will certainly be some, and those kinds of things, and what opportunities there'll be because we don't spend money in this year's budget and can prepay things and things like that. So, I'm confident, just as we were this year, that if we need resources, as we did in a couple of other districts, that we can find them within the spending plan to bring to some type of triage kind of staffing that we might need.
Okay, and that's great, but one of the problems we ran into this year, especially on the substitute side of this, and I don't know about the full-time side, so I can only speak to the substitute, but it was a pretty dry well to find people to come in,
Yeah.
or be available if we needed them.
Well, hiring people is different than subs. Listen, I think one of my predictions is we're going to struggle with sub pool for a couple of years, right?
So,
But finding people, as we start to build models and know that we need people to do X or Y or Z for more permanent positions has not been as much of a problem, other than EAs.
okay. Now, the other concern on top of this is, well, just right within the district, we've got a lot going on here right now. We've got your departure, and that's created some uneasiness. And now we're talking about eliminating a position, and I have concerns about between those two issues, what kind of underlying effect across the school that could have with the staff. And right now, with the times we're in with COVID, I'm looking for stability here, and I don't know if this is the best way to find it.
So, I mean, I think as far as I should say tonight is while there are some reductions of positions, our analysis of the retirements that will be coming to you is that there are not people losing positions. You will in fact be hiring some people.
Yeah, our hope is that with any turnover, or that with natural turnover, that no one will be losing a job.
Right. We can't get into those tonight because obviously they haven't gone to the board and been accepted and those kinds of pieces yet. But we don't believe, based on our analysis, that there's a loss of a position by anyone in this budget.
But there's still loss of a classroom teacher, as Greg's saying. And Greg, just to answer your question a little further, I mean, if we still are in a COVID situation, we have to break everything down and make it small. So we've used every person that we have needed to. So am I hearing, Bill, that there would be some type of going back to the drawing board with that if we were?
Well, there was this year, so I would have to assume that there would be again, right? There's a need to go back and see, okay, if we're still in this mode come then, I'm going to make some assumptions about whether we've run sports, for example, right? And so you pick up dollars. I mean, Matt just told you what you turned back this year as an example. So there are opportunities, should that be your mode, to bring some other resources, which could include, and probably will include, based on everything we're hearing, some additional federal dollars and all. There are opportunities to bring additional dollars to the party.
Yeah, I mean, every indication that we have is that there will not be an effect for the next school year. Obviously, that's no guarantee, but we can't. It'd be irresponsible for us to budget for that excess of a potential pandemic extending into next school year, because it's very unlikely. And like Bill said, if that were the case, it would undoubtedly be funding sources from the federal and state levels, and we would have to make it work. So.
Yeah, but what I don't want to do. I mean, this is a crystal ball. It's a crystal ball whether we're still there in this situation. It's a crystal ball about any state or federal funding resources and what that might mean. And that does concern me. I don't want to be sitting here having to scramble to find funds if we need to find somebody.
I'm gonna disagree to the point where I'm gonna say I don't know that it's just crystal ball gazing on our part.
Okay.
I think we build a budget based on the assumption that we're back in school. That's the best assumption for us to use. What we've tried to say is, if the kinds of things you're laying out were to come to bear, we know from the signals we've already gotten from the incoming administration and some other discussion that there will be additional dollars and all to support those kinds of things. That's going to happen. There's going to be some kind of package, and it's going to include additional dollars for local government, for school districts, for those kinds of things. So we believe that those kinds of things would allow us to be nimble enough to react. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that's better than crystal ball.
And I
Okay.
mean, we base our decisions on the science. I mean, that's why we've presented reopening plans for this year in the manner that we have. And the experts are indicating that, vaccines are going to be available into 2021, and with proper, behavior, we should be in good shape for next fall. Now, granted, that's based on, there's a small degree of uncertainty there, but I think that's the best we can, when we're budgeting, when we're going through this budget process, those are the type of assumptions that we need to make. And I think that's the proper budget assumption.
Okay, fair enough. My next question then has to do with the investment in this particular role or this individual. Not sure who it would be, but we've got time, we've got competency-based training invested in this individual. And, are we just throwing all of this out the window and losing that investment we have?
So Greg,
Because-
like we said, we don't anticipate losing a person.
It sounds, Matt, am I right? You're more sort of moving parts around.
We anticipate through natural turnover that we won't be
Yeah.
losing a person. It's just a position.
That's right.
Okay.
And that's the case for all of right. So
Wait, I just, I'm sorry, I need that. You're not losing a person, you're losing a position. So
people retire
yeah,
or they leave the district.
right.
So the position might be going away, but we're not eliminating an actual person. A person isn't
Nope.
leaving the school other than on their own accord via retirement or
Right.
leaving. the
No one's
district.
losing a job.
Yeah, so just for simplicity's sake, I think what we're saying here is, say 3 teachers retire, we replace 2.
That's
But
correct.
no one's going to be let go
Absolutely.
as a result of it.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm being
No, you're fine.
Thanks,
So,
John.
just to clarify, if we need that, if in John's scenario there, if we need that third body, you feel confident we could go get it.
So come next fall, if we're in a situation where we need an extra body, we would obviously we'd have, that's where you pull levers. So even if we hadn't budgeted for it, we'd have to look at reducing elsewhere, finding federal funding. We'd make it happen if that's what we needed.
And Greg, in terms of people, given what I'm hearing in terms of budgeting in Massachusetts and in New Hampshire, unfortunately, there are going to be plenty of teachers available.
Okay. I just have a lot of concerns about this.
I hear you.
Even if we were to not eliminate it, we're still below, our 21-22 budget would still be below our current year's budget only by 0.4%. But I have a lot of concerns with this. I'm not as confident as next fall being where you're presenting it, but I understand why you're presenting it the way you are.
Oh, maybe we can look
So
at it a little
maybe-
differently. So this current year, we had a certain number of teachers for what we anticipated with a certain number of students. Well, we're expecting those number of students to decline next year. So if we went into this type of situation, we'd actually be working with a smaller total number of students, which naturally, so we have normal conditions and then COVID conditions. Well, it's going down no matter either way from this year to next year. So we'll have one less teacher, but we'll also have less students than we have this year. And that, right? So we'll be in better shape even with this staff.
So let me ask you this. From your perspective, how do you look out to how do you look out to manage, or we manage, what we think might be coming beyond next year? There are a lot of families in town with young kids who aren't quite in the system yet that are about to, and I'm kind of curious how we should manage that.
Well, the enrollment projections aren't showing a big increase.
Well, not for next year, but 2-3 years from now.
Well, I mean, we continue to monitor enrollment. I think we have, I mean, we're based on our current enrollments and our class sizes, we have some flexibility and some the ability to accommodate some additional students. We're going to be doing a refreshed enrollment projections this fall, which will give us better visibility further out. But I mean, that's something that we would, say we did see a huge increase, and then we'd look at adding a teacher if it warranted it. But that's something that we look at, like, for the next foreseeable future. We anticipate kind of this similar enrollment numbers.
And
so this is the proper staffing, and we can only look out so far, and then we adjust accordingly if there's a change in that trend.
And Greg, what I want to emphasize with Matt's point is your question would be a great question. Not that it's a bad question. It would be a great question if we didn't know that we had these retirements that are coming to you, right? Because then your question becomes, would you really lay off a teacher if you knew that you were going to see a rebound in enrollment and you were going to need a teacher the next year? No, you wouldn't do that. But given where you are with staffing and what we know is coming your way in terms of those retirements, that's not at all what you're doing, right? In fact, we believe, and again, you'll see those in that early December meeting, we believe you're going to actually be hiring next year, even at this budget.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, morale is in culture is an important component of staffing. If you're laying off people, that can affect the school climate.
Right.
In this case, that's a non-factor. Additionally, you made another great point as far as sunk costs into training and getting, and there's always a cost to turnover regardless.
Sure, absolutely.
So when you lose a person, so that there is a cost if you were to, but again, in this case, we don't think that's going to be a problem based on natural turnover. So, but those are great questions. I mean, and those are something you'd absolutely take into account if we were looking at actually laying off a person.
Sorry to monopolize board. I don't know if anyone has any questions or thoughts. Didn't mean to monopolize that much.
I just have one question, just being new. If you could just talk through a little bit about the process you use to project upcoming enrollment. And then as a side note, you obviously are looking at the retirements in relation to specific class sizes and matching up. It's not just losing an individual and not needing to hire them. I would assume the position from which that educator would retire from, if the class size justified 2 classes and you were losing, say, a 5th grade teacher, you may not have someone that could just naturally shift into that, right? If it was a 8th grade to a kindergarten, or, a little bit about kind of that thought process.
Well, I'll do the second one. It's a matter of licensure first, and what licenses people have, and Beth may want to comment on a piece of this too. And then a matter of what grade spans or grade levels they've taught in the past, those kind of pieces that all go into that. I mean, as much as I can say tonight is we have some corresponding changes coming as a result of the retirement incentive that match up almost perfectly with some of the changes that are being proposed in the budget, and that came after the budget had been developed. So that's sort of the enrollment and staffing piece. And Matt, the enrollment?
Yeah, so we utilize an outside firm who conduct enrollment projections. So they look at birth rates. They also take into account any sort of like developments, or like demographic information within the individual town. So that's our last enrollment projections were conducted in 2017. So we are actually due to do it this year, but the data is, you know, it isn't it's marred this year, obviously. So we are deferring it one more year to the fall, to refresh those projections, and then we for next year we did our own analysis as far as taking a look at actual projections. We have a list of homeschool families, private families, and we actually directly reached out to two families to determine, whether they plan to continue in a homeschool or private environment, or if they were planning to come back when we reopen next fall. So that's the process as far as the projections go.
All right. I'm glad that there was a second piece of a little independent, because the 2017 part was a little concerning, because I feel like even just in the changes in the housing market and the way people are moving, that is maybe a little outdated information to base a position rework. But if there was some more targeted approach, I'm a little more comfortable with that.
Yeah, for next year, it was primarily our own outreach and analysis based on what we know about the community today. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about staffing? Page 2. It's always a big topic of discussion. This is probably the largest account. So.
Matt, you mentioned an enrollment anomaly in your presentation. Can you expand on that a little bit? When you did your first opening, you mentioned we're currently in an enrollment anomaly.
Oh yeah, so we would have higher enrollment this year had we not been in COVID.
Okay.
So kids went home. We have a percentage of students that went homeschool, a percentage of students that went private. That in a normal school year that would not have occurred. So that was what I meant by an anomaly.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And again, and I know you said this, and forgive me, how are we voting on this again? Can you go over that real quickly for me? I apologize to everyone. I missed that.
Yeah. So any changes that you make, we'll vote on, and then we'll vote on the final bottom line budget. So if you make it, sorry.
Will the teachers, do we risk, your point about morale, Greg, I like that. First of all, Greg, thank you for bringing up all those points. I agree with, you took the words right out of my mouth there. But will there be a chance after the December meeting to perhaps strike that out, and so the staff doesn't see, I'm just worried about the fact that we're eliminating, that thought is there in print. Do we risk any morale issues with that, or whereas we can eliminate that with the knowledge of the teacher retirement and just rework the this part of the budget, or.
Well, Beth is does a really nice job communicating to the staff.
Yeah.
So she makes, every year she communicates to the staff what our budget is, and I'm certain that she'll elaborate on, that we're not cutting people, that it's positions, and she'll explain that component of it. Bill, were you going to say something?
The only thing I was going to say is, that Beth, I just want to reiterate what Matt said, and we also touch base with the union leadership on reductions made across our districts. We're very open with them about the discussions and whether a position means someone's actually going to lose a job or whether there are other factors going. All those kinds of things. We have cuts in other districts this year, and so Andy and I have had those discussions, and I know that Beth has had those discussions, and Melissa's had those discussions as well.
Thank you.
That's a great question, though, Jason. It's really important too, and I thank you for considering that because, that culture, climate, morale piece, in any workforce is certainly important. And when we're talking about, these type of public meetings where the information is out there and is discussed, sometimes, wrong information can be conveyed. So it's our intent to try to be as straightforward and transparent and make sure that everyone has that information.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Bill.
Unless anybody has any questions, I'm still a little uncertain on this one myself. I just want to reserve the right to come back to this before we vote on this. I need to still process this a little bit, if I can. So, Matt, I don't want to hold you up here. If no one else has any questions about this page.
Yeah. So so Hampton Falls is unique in that you do not have a town budget committee. So you have all the way up until the deliberative session to make any changes. So we're not set in stone. When we move the page, we can always go back. So,
Okay.
So I'm suggesting we don't so we're not gonna vote on this until, if you make any changes, we'll vote
Sure.
on a specific account. But we can even go back to that. Even if you vote, you can always reconsider and vote again. And then the bottom line, and ultimately it's the bottom line that matters. That's what's going on the ballot. That's the final number. So you are more than welcome to reconsider at any point during this process. And we have months to do so.
Okay.
Not that I want to extend this any further.
No, I don't.
Come on,
I
Matt.
don't.
Page 2 is a good page.
We can stay on page 2 for as long as you want. But
I'm good at this point.
all right, I won't linger. All right, page 5 is salary for educational associates. So this is the salary for the paraprofessional in our lower grade levels, kindergarten. Page 6 is salaries other. Budgeted $22,932. This is our math intervention specialist, as well as some tutoring services.
Matt, sorry, can you go back?
Yep.
Can you explain this page to me? I'm having a hard time following. It's going from 12 to 22, but it's not really.
I'm sorry. So I should have mentioned this. So this position was previously partially funded via our Title I grants. However, as of this current year, Hampton Falls is no longer eligible for Title I funds. So now that portion of this person's salary is coming out of Title I and going into the operating budget.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
So it's not changing. So it looks like it's a big increase, but it's not changing other than the normal cost of living adjustment. It's just where the funding source is coming from. So previously it was grant funded, now it's operating budget.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Page 7 is our substitute salary page. So we're budgeting $22,300. We have a daily rate of $90.
We just raised that, correct?
We did
Okay.
this past year.
That's what I thought.
We also made some other changes to try to attract more substitutes. So previously we required a 4-year college experience. Now it's, I believe it's 2 years of college, just to open up the pool. We've also done some more outreach with marketing to try to get substitutes, because that's a challenge that we were facing before the pandemic, and we anticipate will continue after.
Okay.
All right, page 8 is contracted services. We're budgeting $30,220. So this is Hampton Falls' portion of the ESOL teacher that we're sharing across multiple districts. As you recall, We used to have part-time positions in each district. In this manner, we're actually we're having a full-time employee. So ostensibly, you have a better person because it's easier to get a better person in a full-time position. So we're gaining more services, and it's actually a lower cost than if we had individually hired part-time positions. This is part of that. This is actually an SAU employee, and part of our initiative to try to share resources across the SAU and kind of create some efficiencies. Page 9, we've level funded repair and maintenance equipment at $200. So this is really just to tune the piano. Page 10 is our rental lease equipment, level funded at $14,093. So this is for our lease and service contracts for our copiers. Page 11, we budgeted $36,000.
Excuse me, Matt. Is that on the copiers? Is that a new lease that you referred to recently across the district that we're all part of, or is that just for us?
Yeah. So good question. So we entered into a new agreement with Canon across all of the districts except for Hampton Falls, because this is your contract, I think, was signed just last year, and this is actually a pretty decent contract. Some of our other schools were not.
Okay.
We were able to recognize some pretty significant savings by going to Canon. Once this expires, we will likely roll Hampton Falls under that Canon contract, and we should see some savings there. But it would have cost more to terminate this early than to maintain it. So
fair enough. Thank you.
Good question. Good memory. Page 11, we've budgeted $36,917 for supplies. So you'll see this is a reduction, but it's really due to our STEM initiative. So if you recall, last year we made a significant investment in our STEM program. It was year one. So that was an upfront one-time cost. So that's fallen off. Of course, we're going to continue with additional supplies for STEM, but we don't need as significant an investment this year for STEM.
So the STEM reductions I've seen across the entire budget, does that primarily have to do with the fact that we're not in person and that we already have the supplies, or is there another reason for that?
No, it's because last year we made a big investment in STEM to get the program up and running. So now it's reverting to more normal costs on an annual basis. So we'll invest in STEM, but you're not going to see those high costs every year. So,
so it's not an elimination.
No. I mean, STEM is an incredibly important program that we've put a high emphasis on. It's actually one of our. I mean, you notice it's one of our top priorities as we move forward. So
we built a room for it.
I mean, it likely won't be $1,000 every year. It'll be more than that. But because we invested so heavily this past year, that could drop down this year. So
thank you.
What types of services do these or supplies are generally covered?
Beth, you want to speak on specifics? I mean, I can think of a few things, but you know better than me.
Jill, when I start to build the budget, I give each teacher a sheet, and what they will do is, from their vantage point, whether it's kindergarten or 8th grade science, they all have different needs and different needs for supplies. And I have a whole list of each of them so that whether they need math workbooks, depending on the age, or they need all kinds of supplies that, like, for example, a kindergartner would use, or Lisa Woodruff with all of her science supplies, that's a reflection of what this is. So like for example, if you took art and, $2,500 divided by 220 students is what her supplies list is all about.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the amount. Just curious if, like books will come up in a, because this is new to me, do I see
Mhm.
books on another page?
Yes. you
Yes.
do.
Okay.
Yes.
Or field trips or any of that stuff
Yep.
come,
Yep.
okay.
Yes.
So what you'll see in the upcoming pages you'll start to see the big picture. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to talk you through it.
And
Right.
Beth does a great job working with the departments and the individual teachers to determine what their needs are and then bring it forth so that it's really a kind of zero-based budgeting as far as it's coming from the teachers, and then she works with them and then with us to determine what is necessary for the budget. So, but yeah, all those, I mean, you'll see a books account, equipment, all, it's individual by account.
And then technology is also completely separate, Jill. You'll see that coming up. Page 300.
We'll be there in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
All right, page 12. We've budgeted $7,600 for books, print media. So this is, you'll see this is a decrease. We're looking at expanding the foundations program, and actually we're looking at this current year for expanding it, but due to the financial considerations, we did decide to defer it 1 year. Otherwise you'll see there's some slight decreases in the trade book sets. Otherwise they're fairly similar spending, by grade. Any questions on books and print media?
I'm sorry, Matt, what is the foundations? Is that foundations? I'm sorry, that's for what?
It's a reading program.
Writing, yeah.
K through 2, 3, 4, 5. What grades, or is that K through 8?
You're at the elementary level with that.
Okay. And just as, okay. Thank you, Beth.
Yep.
All right, page 13, we budgeted $7,245 for equipment. So you'll see it's outlined by, by grades and by discipline. So Greg, as you mentioned, this is another example where STEM, there's a pretty big investment last year, almost $5,000. This year it's been cut to zero because we purchased a good amount of equipment last year. We're making, there was a need for some bookcases. So you'll see that that's an increase of $3,000. Overall, it's a slight decrease, but this does fluctuate by year based on need in the classroom. All right, moving into special education. Page 15 is the salary for our special education director, $90,845. So that reflects, so with salaries, I neglected to mention, we have a cost of living adjustment and steps. There's salary schedules for all of our employees. So for teachers and employees that are under the collective bargaining agreement, that's been approved at ballot. It's a 4-year contract. This year, it's a 2.75% cost of living increase, and then there's step. For CESPA employees, the CESPA CBA is for our paraprofessionals, our educational associates. They have a CBA, and that for this year, that goes to ballot. That was approved, and this year it's a 1.0% cost of living adjustment plus step. And then we have our non-union employees. So that'd be our administrators, our technology staff, food service, facilities, administrative assistants. So what we do is we benchmark our cost of living adjustment to inflation. So that's based on the Consumer Price Index, CPI, for this geographic region. We take a look at the previous year in rate of inflation. So that's in this case, July of 2019 to July of 2020. And this past year's inflation rate was at 0.8%. So embedded in the non-union staff, there's a 0.8% cost of living adjustment plus step increase. So I just want you to be aware that is written in here, but I just want you all to be aware of those staff salary cost of living adjustments. So
Matt,
for
I'm sorry.
yes,
Matt, is this Melissa's second year of a 2-year contract or second year of a 3-year contract? I don't recall.
I believe she's on a 2-year contract.
Okay.
But I'll need to verify that.
Okay,
I
just
can
curious.
certainly get that information for you.
Okay,
Typically for those roles, it's 2 years.
that's what I thought.
So, and I think we locked Beth in for like a 15-year. Is that right,
Yeah.
Beth? Did we?
I don't think so.
If
Yeah,
we, if
two-
we, if we haven't, I'm going to push for it.
God, I'll be 100.
All right, so page 16 is our salaries, certified staff for our special education teachers, which is budgeted at $238,630. So I do want to, there's 2 notes here. So one is we did have a reading specialist teacher in this account that has been transferred to this next page, salary specialist. It really was in the wrong account. So that's a $85,000 salary that is removed from this account. So that's part of the variance. And then you'll see in this account there's a corresponding increase. The other item is that we're reducing one of the case manager positions from 100% to a 60% position. So that reflects the remainder of the decrease from 350 to 238. So, also of note, per the CBA, a full-time teacher is 0.8 or higher. So by bringing this position from a 1 to a 0.6, we also have a corresponding savings in benefits. So that's a reduction in health insurance, dental, and in retirement.
What is the logic? What is the logic behind this reduction?
Oh, this is a math question. So it's based on a number of students that students that are identified on an IEP, and then versus the number of case managers. So we're at a level of students with service that requires services that doesn't warrant 3 full-time positions.
Okay.
Beth, I have a question. Do you foresee this affecting the student aid availability for next year?
I think this is along the lines of the same conversation we had about enrollment and numbers. And I mean, IEP students that are on IEPs, they can vary. It's not about a number of students necessarily. It's about the amount of services provided in it and how many man hours it takes to deliver all of that.
So that was part of the calculations or the mindset behind. Okay.
Matt's correct.
I simplified it a little bit. I'm sorry. I mean, that's okay. Right. It's more the hours and what's required, because every student's different. Obviously, there's you can't just take 12 students with an IEP and say you need this much time.
Right.
It's every student requires a different amount of service, a different number of hours. So that was factored in. Melissa did a really nice job in calculating what is necessary. And this was the outcome.
Is there a concern that, I guess, with this, if this goes through, then Beth or Mrs. McKeon, how do you determine which person moves down to this 3-day a week?
So again, like the other positions, there are, I should have said it this way, not only does no one lose a position, there's no one that's necessarily impacted by these reductions as well. And that'll become clear when we discuss retirements in December.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Yeah. So throughout this budget, none of these personnel changes we anticipate affecting actual people. So whether it's elimination or reduction.
Good.
So,
Great. Is there any risk with the unknown population entering the school for next year and the services that we might need to provide there? I mean, are we able to accommodate for that?
well, there's always a risk of potential move-ins, and that's accommodated via our special education expendable trust. So should there be a change, so we students, Melissa has a pretty good idea of our families. I mean, students are identified at age 3, so we know what's coming up. That being said, there's high variability with special education. It could be move-ins, there could be students that have not been identified or evaluated. But that's what our special education expendable trust is for. And that's our contingency in the case that we do need, say we do get, 5 new students, that require services, we can go and hire another teacher or increase this position from a 0.6 to a 0.1 or whatever the need may be. When we budget, we base it on our known costs, our known what we know is coming as of today, and then we have our expendable trust for the unknown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. All right, page 17. We budgeted $228,612 for specialist salaries. So this is our psychologist, BCBA, as well as our reading specialist. As I noted, the reading specialist got moved from the previous account into this account to more accurately reflect the role. Also, please note that we are recommending reducing the school psychologist position from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. So that's from a 1.0 to or 100% to a 60%, similar to the case manager, and that's again based on student need. All right, page 18, we've budgeted $227,201 for our educational associates. These are our special education associates. Again, this is, we conduct a pretty comprehensive review of all of our students' IEPs, what services are needed, how we can best maximize our EAs, because sometimes you can share services, sometimes there's one-on-ones. So we are proposing the elimination of one EA, and that's based on our current students' need as of today.
So with that elimination, Matt, is there still one vacant position, or is that vacant position is what's being eliminated?
So we are eliminating that vacancy.
Okay.
So. Page 19, we budgeted $31,637 for our special education administrative assistant with associated cost of living adjustment and step increase. Page 20, we budgeted $2,200 for workshops, seminars. This is a slight increase, or it's a $1,200 increase. This is for our staff to attend conferences, workshops, do some in-service programs or other professional development. The reason for the increase is in previous years, this wasn't taken advantage of. However, this is something that that Melissa does intend to participate in with her staff. This is incredibly important as far as professional development, and and as you can see, there's some law conferences and special education conferences that are critically important with with staying up to date with special education regulations and law. Page 21, we've budgeted $239,651 for professional services. This is about $30,000 or about $38,000 increase from last year. As you'll see that this provides, these are for services that we contract out, an outside vendor. So our OT, our physical therapy, speech language services. And again, this is based on student need. You'll also know, I do want to point out, so in many of these accounts, you'll see information on grant funding. So we do plan, you'll see the Northeast Passage and Here to Learn. We do anticipate funding, $2,200 and $1,000 via the IDEA grant. And that's what that means is those are services that we're providing our students, or whatever expenditure it might be, out of a grant source, as opposed to the operating budget that we're budgeting for here. So we just want you to have visibility into all of our expenditures, even if they're not coming out of the operating budget.
Matt and Beth, with regards to grants, are we seeing grants diminish as far as what's available, how much money is available, or are you seeing still a consistent pattern for what is available both financially and as a grant would go?
Do you want to answer, Matt, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of been a trend for decreased federal funding over the years.
Okay.
I mean, you see we lost Title I. FEMA was, taken out from under us for reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. I think it's oftentimes predicated by the current administration and their philosophy on educational funding. There were some difficulties we encountered with Medicaid recently, where that's decreased. Right. That was more at the state level. That was the issue. It's something we closely monitor, and then we adjust accordingly.
I just see our budgets the last few years absorbing more grant or more cost because grants are no longer there, and I just didn't know if this is a.
Yeah, I mean, we lost the REAP grants at Hampton Falls a number of years ago. That was more a designation. The census designated Hampton Falls as a suburban area as opposed to rural, which I don't fully understand, but that was out of our control. That's just how the town was designated. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Were you going to say something, Bill?
The only thing I was going to say is that the people who, I do a lot of reading on sort of ed policy, and the people who write about education at the federal level anticipate that we could begin to see more dollars for public schools in this administration than in the last, which quite frankly tended to focus money on private schools or ways to drive public monies to private schools. So there is some hope that we may see more money put into some existing programs, and that we may see new programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we're constantly monitoring. I mean, that's why we have our, we've organized these legislative roundtables with our local representatives. That's obviously doesn't affect the federal, but at the state level, because I don't know if you've all paid attention to this most recent election at the state level, but now there's Republican control of the House, the Senate, and the Executive Council, and there's already been indications that there's going to be a move towards more privatizing and more of the like school voucher, learn everywhere, those type of initiatives at the state level. So, we might see an increase at the federal level, but then we very well could see a decrease in state grant funding based on indications that they've given, and what the commissioner has been pushing for, that in these last couple of years they've not been able to, they've proposed but haven't been able to pass because there was a split Congress. But now it's fully there's one party rule, so there's more of a input, or there's more possibility that those type of proposals will come forward.
It's a good point.
So that's where we want to meet with our representatives and let them know, hey, how do these type of bills affect local schools and our operations? And that's the importance of those kind of roundtables, because maybe because oftentimes you're voting again on party line as opposed to, hey, how does this actually affect a school? And we want to educate them as to,
Not that it has direct impact on this budget discussion, but Greg knows, because I think he came to at least one or so of those, that we have never been able to successfully have the representatives who represent Seabrook, Hampton Falls, attend any of our meetings.
Yeah.
We've not been able to get them to the table. They don't, quite frankly, most of them don't even respond to the invitation.
Yeah, you're right. That it's a little insulting.
Yeah.
Matt,
And we're actually trying to help and educate and let them know how. I mean, there's oftentimes unintended consequences to legislation that I think if people just were aware of, they may think differently, maybe amend legislation or look at it a little differently.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
How did we get off on that tangent? Wow. Sorry. All right. Page 22, budgeted $3,418 for evaluations, testing. So these are for special education, like neurological evaluations, testing protocols, evaluation kits. And this is based on student need. Page 23, we've budgeted $4,000 for legal. This is a highly variable account. We increased it slightly, but as you can see, I mean, 2 years ago, we spent $29,000, and then 4 years ago, we spent $500. So it all depends on what's going on in that current school year. Page 24, we've budgeted $253,631 for tuition. So this is for our out-of-district placements. This is a $23,000 increase over last year. As we've outlined, where those generals about the placements without identifying actual students. Page 25, we budgeted $2,000 for travel reimbursement. We anticipate that some of our professional development will be online, even as we move out of the pandemic. The indications are that much of this online learning will continue, out of convenience, and these are some of the changes that we might see that last coming out of this pandemic. Page 26, we budgeted $903 for supplies. You'll see, that we've listed the, speech supplies, reading supplies, et cetera. It's essentially pretty similar to last year. There's a decrease in the curriculum supplies in reading. Page 27, we budgeted $607 for books, print media. You see there's, Seeing Stars, Spire, Framing Your Thoughts. These are specific books that have been identified by the special education team. Page 28, we've budgeted $233 for special education equipment. So that's, again, this is based on specific equipment needed for our students, and there's no new equipment needed for next year that we know of. Again, if there is that's unexpected or unknown, then we would either absorb it into the budget elsewhere where we can recognize savings, or we would utilize the special education expendable trust. Page 29, we've budgeted $555 for dues and fees. So this is for a professional association. And that moves us into student activities. Page 31, we've budgeted $39,782 for coaches and advisors' salaries. So this is based on our extracurricular stipends. So you'll see there's a list on this page. The total maximum number of stipends to pay being paid out is actually, $41,782. However, if you look at previous history, we never spend that full amount because we never have every single group and every single activity. So that offers us the ability to slightly under budget, knowing that, in any given year based on the participation, we won't have every team and every group actually occur, and hence we won't be paying out every stipend.
I have a question.
Yep.
Do we still participate in the Johns Hopkins program? I thought that ended.
We still have a placeholder there, Greg. We had tried to get somebody to administer it, and we haven't been able to do that. So
Okay.
we work with the union and, of course, a representative from the board and myself and Matt each summer, and we go over these lists.
And I'm not advocating to eliminate it. I think one of my children participated in it, and it's a wonderful program. I would hope someone would want to take that upon themselves, but I just
That's why we still have it there.
Okay.
And we as I recall, we increased that stipend because we saw the importance of it, and we were trying to attract someone to advise on that program. So I think we all see the value. So it's just a matter of getting someone to do the job. I guess we'll see moving forward and adjust accordingly. So
thank you.
And sorry, Matt, the same with Destination Imagination. We're retaining that in hopes that we can revive that program.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will note that we don't have the ability to just cut these positions because these are actually part of the CBA. So we can not budget for them, but these positions remain in the CBA, and we can remove them as part of the annual extracurricular stipend committee work that Beth just alluded to, where we work with the union and then we make adjustments. But yeah, it's these are, again, we may not have all of these positions, and that's why we under budgeted it. But we do. I think these are the programs that we would, in an ideal world, will have. Ideally, we have all of them. So
I'm not advocating for this right now, but should we look at increasing the Johns Hopkins stipend? Would that help?
We did that, Greg.
No, I know that, but should we increase it again? Because I think we doubled it last time. And again, I'm not advocating for it right now. It's just, it's a great program. That's all.
Well, you know what? Why don't we see if we can find someone, and then if we're not able to going forward, then we can absolutely address it in that committee work and maybe look at making an adjustment.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So, but that's where it would happen, would be in that committee work, because it needs union approval, and we need to do it in that venue. So, all right, page 33, we've level funded officials trainers at $6,400. So this would be to pay for our referees and officials for any for our athletic events. Page 34, we've budgeted $4,250 for speakers. So this is to bring in speakers, outside speakers to the school. So like an artist in residence, or any other type of special program. These are some examples of programs that we've done in the past or that we could potentially do. So like yoga in classroom, Haven, which is a really nice program. or some type of social emotional learning. I mean, that's an emphasis at Lincoln Ackerman. Occasionally, this was supplemented by PTO funds as well.
Okay. I would like to have a discussion and consideration of adding to this a little bit. I think that there are, a few years ago, we had brought in a program about sort of digital awareness and social media awareness that I thought was really valuable. And I think it's something that we should do on a recurring basis, particularly for the middle school, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th, you know, up. I don't know, Beth, if you've thought about that at all.
We do a lot of that type of work within, but we can certainly talk about it.
And I also want to point out that we aren't locked into these specific programs. So these are examples. So it's such as, so that's, I mean, that's something that, because we're a year out, so we don't know exactly what we're going to do. These are just examples. So
sorry,
I think that's, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I kept interrupting you.
Oh, no. I'm sorry if I was talking
No,
over.
you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, and that's totally fair and makes a lot of sense. In the particular instance I'm thinking of, it was someone brought in a few years ago, and the PTO did pay, I think, 2/3 or 3/4 of that. If we did that similar type of program, I think the program entirely was $3,000 or $4,000. So my concern, you know, I don't want to sacrifice one column for another. You know, if we felt collectively something like that were important and an option presents itself, I want to be able to provide it for the students. I know having a 5th and 8th grader, they're you know, they're pretty damn glued to their things, and it's nice to get people from outside our community coming in and giving them these lessons and telling them about what they're seeing in kids in other schools and in other towns and cities.
Jill, was that Katie Greer?
That's the one, though. I'm sure that there are a number of programs.
Yeah, she was great.
She did a nice job.
I would concur on her presenting, because it was very informative, I thought, not only for the kids, but for the parents as well.
Yep.
So Beth, I actually was going to talk about this page as well. So are you comfortable with reduction in Haven and SEL to the level that we see here? Because I would advocate keeping those.
I actually don't know where the 3,000, I don't recall that, Matt, 3,000 from last year. They don't cost that much, John. They are actually looking for a donation based on the number of students, and it's around $600. It's a program we really value and we will continue, but it's not going to require more money than that.
So is some of that money survey related?
Pardon me?
That might have been the case because we.
Oh, maybe, right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Jill was saying, and I would advocate bumping this up a little just so we have more flexibility, unless we just think that it's in the big picture noise and we have room in the other parts of the budget to pull in if we need to.
Can we put a blank line item there? With
What do you mean?
extra funds?
What do you mean, Jay?
Do we have to define it as a line item, or can we just put
No, so we're again, these are just examples. We're not tied into any of these.
I'm sorry.
These are just estimates. So, I mean, any board member can make a motion to increase or decrease any of these accounts. So for example, if you thought that, you know, you want to level fund this at 8150, you could make a motion to increase this account to 8150. It'd go to vote, and then you determine whether, and that would determine whether we change this account.
So one question I have is, you had mentioned that a lot of these programs have some basis in support from the PTO. So this year in particular, I would advocate for at least keeping things stagnant, because I know the PTO is having a difficult time in these certain circumstances raising money. So I don't know if that's going to be the well that it's been in the past. And I just, if it's going to be something where we can keep things stagnant, have an extra couple $1,000s in this fund so that we don't have to rely so heavily on that, I would personally recommend for it.
Anthony, it's Greg. If I can take that a step further, my approach to the budget personally is I don't want to rely on the PTO at all.
Mhm.
If the PTO is generous enough to provide funds for a speaker, an event, or whatever it may be, I'm more than happy to do that. I agree with you as far as their funding this year. But, if we want to increase this line item, John, you mentioned that if you guys have a dollar amount, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I don't want to use the PTO's money or expect the PTO to supplement our budget, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so that's my question is I don't know if the 8150 was not enough to give what we did and there was a percentage of that because I'd be in favor of at least keeping it stagnant, at the 8150 and say, okay, we're gonna come up to that and we're gonna sacrifice a little bit because we're obviously not gonna get what we used to get out of that same money.
Yeah, so just so from historical context, you'll see in 1920 we budgeted $3,150, and that was with the intent of receiving PTO supplemental funds. We increased it by $5,000 to the 8150 with the philosophy that we didn't want to expect those funds from the PTO. Now, obviously, for 2021, we're not going to be spending 8150, but that was the level we thought was appropriate without getting PTO funds. The 3150 was with PTO funds.
Yeah, and I just, from being on the PTO for a number of years, I can concur with Matt that there were several budget years where there was an understanding that the PTO would supplement funds for these types of activities. And then I think there was a shift in that 2021 year where the budget accommodated. So there is automatically been less reliance, but Anthony's right. After the last 2 years, the PTO's kitty has shrunk considerably. And I like to consider them as something we can call on when opportunity arrives. But if there are things we have in mind to plan for, we should plan for them.
Did we see any surplus when we went up to 8150? Did we use all of that? Did it? Obviously that was a challenging. Where are we in relation?
That's this
year.
So that's this year, and there's no way we're going to spend anywhere near.
We're not going to spend
any of it.
We're not bringing anyone in. We're
Is that part of?
zero.
Okay, that would be part of a savings back, or we would just reallocate those funds within the budget for remote or some other.
Right.
Okay.
Is this
I
something-
would be comfortable with 7,500.
Now I'll make a motion that we increase this to 7,500 just to give us a little more wiggle room.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Now, Matt, do we do a roll call vote on this?
Yes, please. So, Deborah, do you mind calling a roll?
You're on. You're
I was
muted.
just trying to see if I can make add the roll call in the budget, in the line, but that's fine. Okay, so I don't have the list in front of me right now. So Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
John Farias.
Jason, and yes.
Jason, sorry. Give me 1 second. Anthony Lang
Yes.
and Jill Swayze.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that passes, and we'll update this account to reflect $7,500. All right, page 35. We've level funded admissions at $7,500. So this is for field trips. And again, these are examples of potential trips, but they're not we're not locked into these specific field trips. Page 36, we've budgeted $2,500 for supplies. So these are various supplies for student activities such as math counts, world culture, drama, etc. This is a $1,500 decrease.
I mean, this is another one, right? Beth, I mean, the 1,500, is it just, do we need to hit it with 1,500 or can we just keep it level? Does it
I
dramatically?
think we can, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You know, we're making decreases pretty much across the board. I do think all of our student activities, if they do come back at full strength, we'll find the money to fund them.
Okay.
I know we're not tied to that, but you know, we haven't spent a dime of it this year. I don't know what else.
So we're gonna have some. So in many of these accounts, we have some supplies that we're gonna have left over from this past spring and then this year with a different environment because we're not using them.
Yeah.
And then in some of these accounts, you also look at historical averages as far as like we may not have necessarily spent the full amount in the past anyway. And then you factor in there's also a decrease in enrollment. So that all those factors are combined to represent some of these reductions.
Thank you.
All right, page.
Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry, Matt. I'm sure it's down here and I probably should have seen it, but transportation for any of those activities? Because I know, thank you.
Yep. So we have a transportation. So that's really towards the end of the budget, but we have regular education, transportation, special education, transportation, athletics, field trips, and then other transportation for like McKinney-Vento. So that's like foster or homeless transportation. But that'll be in that department. So.
I just want to make one other comment on that. Just the relation to $1,500 for arts and music versus the optics of decreasing the art and music budget. I know that we shift things around and we have an opportunity to put money back in there, but I just want to make sure that we're not sending the wrong message in a line item for anyone that looks through line items, that there's a move away from this particular one. Not that we need to change it, but I just want to bring it to the table.
Well, this isn't just arts. So this includes all of our athletic teams as well. So if you see this, so it's
I mean, all of those things, I think, like maybe like if we say it's coming from, one or the other, but, there's a lot of things that I think are social hot buttons within just this bulleted list for the amount that we're looking to save. So like I said, I just want to bring it to the table. I don't feel, fervent enough to stand and die on this hill and hold up the budget process, but, just so we can definitely move on.
okay. And anyone else have any further discussion? Supplies? All right, page 37, we budgeted $1,982 for equipment. So this is primarily for uniforms for our athletic teams. That brings us out of student activities and into guidance. We budgeted on page 39, we budgeted $85,210. This is for our school guidance counselor. Includes the cost of living and STEP. Similarly, we have our school nurse budgeted for $66,331. Page 42, we budgeted $1,000 for substitute nurses. Page 43, we budgeted $207 for employment exams. Page 44, we've level funded supplies at $1,500 for health supplies. So this includes like Band-Aids, gloves, Tylenol, etc. Page 45.
Sorry, do we actually stock EpiPens? Or did you just have a long list in there?
I think
We
I think she does have EpiPens, and I can ask her for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
I think
curious,
every
like,
one of our schools carries
has them.
EpiPens. So. And I know that because a couple years ago, the price went skyrocketed for EpiPens, but I think that's leveled off now. Page 45, we have $1 for equipment. So this is really for our AEDs, and we did make those purchases last year, or this current fiscal year, and they are good for 6 years. Page 46, we've level funded dues and fees at $150. So this is the professional association for our nurse. That brings us to improvement of instruction. Page 48, we've budgeted $11,250. This is for really stipends for curriculum work. We have mentors stipends, we have leadership coordinators. That is level funded. So a lot of this goes into like our CBE, our competency-based education initiative. Some of that work. Page 49, we've budgeted $6,000 for tuition reimbursement. So this is a slight increase. We have seen an increase in tuition requests. Our teachers are allowed the opportunity to, or provided the opportunity to be reimbursed for a single UNH graduate course. And we have seen an uptick in those reimbursements. Page 50, we've level funded testing at $1,500. So this is for the Gates-McGinty reading tests and NEWA tests. Page 51, we've budgeted $5,000 for workshops and seminars. So this is for professional development for our staff. So that could be conferences, workshops, potentially in service. Again, we have seen and we anticipate more online professional development. So that's part of the reason for the decrease. Page 52, we've level funded in-service training at $300. Page 53, we've level funded our professional development for our educational associates. So that's CESPA at $1,200. Again, that's contractual per their CBA. Page 54, we've level funded travel reimbursement at $1,000. So this is really mileage reimbursement when our staff may attend a workshop or seminar offsite. Page 55, we've level funded books at $100. And that brings us to educational media. Page 57 is our media specialist salary at $73,528. So this is a shared position. Page 58, we have $1 in repair and maintenance of AV equipment. Page 59, we've budgeted $1,500 for library supplies. Page 60, we've level funded AV media
Sorry,
supplies.
Matt, can you go back, please?
Yep.
So library, this is a pet area of mine. And I think we need to invest in the library personally. And I don't know if that's upgrading the books or what exactly, but Beth, I'd really like you to take a look at this and see if you think we need to up this or where you think appropriate investment should be in the library. But I think it's an area that we do need to improve within the school.
John,
So-
no, go ahead. I know
No,
it's a
please.
private conversation.
No.
We also have classroom libraries in all of our classrooms. So I think that's where a lot of book money also goes.
Mhm.
I did talk with our librarian at length, and another problem we have is space. So what she is going to do is start to weed out books that are not as popular. And we just encumbered the rest of her funds for this year so that she can beef it up again. But a lot of teachers spend a lot of money as well on classroom sets of books that they're constantly begging money for. But between the two, let me go back and talk to her, John. I agree with you. I think the library should be robust.
I mean, if we had an adequate path for it, I would advocate putting this up to 5 or 10 grand personally. Just because, I mean, we've all been in the library, we've seen what the quality of the books are, how old they are, et cetera. I think it could use an upgrade.
Okay. Happy to make that upgrade.
Could we put maybe a 2-3 year plan together to maybe address this?
Sure. I think it's more than a library discussion, though. I think it's a staff discussion. I'd be
Okay.
happy to have that and get back to you with it. But like each of the classroom libraries they're also really growing. So let me pull the whole crew together and talk about a plan for that.
Now, is the deficiency that you see, John, books?
To me, it's more philosophical. To me, the library is like the soul or the heart of a school, personally. And maybe I'm biased based on my own upbringing, and I was fortunate. The schools I went to had some fairly phenomenal libraries. But I just think the library should be an area where kids are excited to go, want to go sit down, find a good book, read it, get into it. And I think it's the future, personally. So that, again, this is my pet little area for me. But I would love to have, as Greg pointed out, some kind of a 3 to 5 year plan of this is what we actually think we could do with the library, either upgrading the books themselves, the furniture, the what have you. But I think the entire room could use a lot of work.
That's what I was getting at. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was just the books or if it was more the atmosphere, because I mean, I know Northampton just recently did a 3-year library kind of redesign to make it more accessible, more user friendly. We changed out all the furniture, all how books are displayed and accessed. Granted, they have a little bit more space than our space at Lincoln Ackerman, but that was part of a 3-year plan but it wasn't just the books; it was the whole feel of the library. So I think that's a great initiative that Beth, if we can, maybe we can form a little committee with your librarian and other interested parties. We can work on that. That's probably not this budget cycle, but we can certainly get something together for the next year's budget.
And it does all matter, but most fundamentally, books are what really matter.
John, I want to thank you for bringing that up. I think you're absolutely right. It's so important, and our school looks awesome now. We invested a lot in it, but the appearance and the feel in the library, despite the enthusiasm of the teachers there, it does still leave a little something. And if we can start to budget now, even if we increase this, incrementally, to start to get a plan in motion that we can really implement in the following year, I think that would be awesome.
Well, the one thing we could do, and I don't want to go off track here too much, is the way our building maintenance trust fund is worded. If we put a 3-year plan together, for example, in combination with some budgeting in that trust, we might be able to accomplish what we want to do, or what Beth and the librarians and the staff would like to do. Just some thought there.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, John.
All right, so page 60, we're level funding AV media supplies at $500. So this would be like replacement bulbs for our projectors, audio tapes, etc. Page 61 we're level funding books, print media at $7,200. So this would be the actual books in the library. As you can see, there's curriculum specific, periodicals, general library books, and then audio and ebooks. That brings us into technology. Page 63 is our informational information technologists and technology integrator salaries for a total of $89,316. Page 64, we've level funded repair and maintenance at $2,000. Page 65, we've level funded rental lease equipment at $17,420. So this is our lease for our Chromebooks. So as you recall, we lease the Chromebooks. So this is a level funding every year for our students. Page 66, we budgeted $1,500 for computer supplies. This is a $500 increase. Page 67, we budgeted $6,144 for information access fees. So this is our internet service. So we actually recently transitioned from Comcast to CCI, which and going from cable to fiber. This is particularly important this year. Not only because of our wireless upgrade, but because of the additional remote needs and the number of people online or potential need. And actually, we're recognizing a slight savings by going to fiber. Page 68, we've budgeted $51,626 for software. So we've included this. So this is a pretty lengthy list. We've segmented it by departments. We have technology, curriculum, administration, library, school nutrition, school health. You'll see that there is an increase, of about $12,000. This represents some investments in IXL Math. This is a 3-year subscription for our math curriculum. We have some increases. Where else? So Power School is slightly higher. Board docs. There's just some cost escalation here in some of these accounts. Any questions on any of this software specifically?
That I take it this includes tech support also in these fees.
In many of these
Okay.
software, not all of them, but yes.
Matt, does the whole staff have access to the Microsoft 365 suite?
Um,
Or is that a license number and whoever's on it's on it?
I'll have to verify that. I'm not certain off the top of my head. So. All right. So, page 70, we had 2 accounts. One was software license and one was software, somewhat redundant. So we're eliminating this account. Page 71, we're budgeting $23,400 for new technology equipment. So this is a pretty significant decrease, and that's because last year we had a one-time investment to upgrade our wireless system. That was $60,000. So this just brings it back to normal spending levels. You'll see the year prior, it was budgeted at $20,200. So.
How are we on staff devices in general? Are we pretty up to date? I know we've been trying to rotate each year.
Yeah, so we've implemented replacement cycles for our devices. So we are, I think we're in pretty good shape right now. We do have, so you'll see we have replacement of our EA devices.
Right.
Included in this year's budget. So that's this year for those employees. We actually have, some replacements that we accelerated from this coming budget into this year because we had some savings. So the wireless project came, if you recall, it came in under the 60,000. So we were able to do some of these staff replacements this year instead of including it in next year's budgets to kind of level that out a little better. So.
And are these Chromebooks, laptops, combination, iPads, all that fun stuff?
Well, the EA devices are Chromebooks.
Okay.
You'll see they're $325 each. So.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right, page 73, we budgeted $16,495 for district officer salaries. If you recall, at our last board meeting, you approved increasing the recording secretary stipend to $125. So that's the difference in cost. Page 74, we've level funded legal at $10,000. Again, this is one of those highly variable accounts. Page 75, we've budgeted $7,900 to contract out we have our annual audit that's conducted by Plodzik and Sanderson, an outside firm. Page 76, we budgeted $1,505 for our annual meeting. So this is to print the ballots primarily, and then it's the some other small costs. Page 77, we've level funded postage at $500. Page 78, we've budgeted $250 for advertising. This is a slight decrease because we're doing more online and less like paper advertising.
Matt, do we need to revisit postage if we're going back to a mailer?
Thanks, John. I was just thinking that same question.
Right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I was just seeing if maybe we had kind of, because the marketing materials are out of the other expenses. So this is the account where we'd the actual cost of the mailer, like the produce would come out of. But you're right, the postage to send it out will likely come out of this account. It depends on if we mail it out or if the board member mails it out and then gets reimbursed, probably.
Do you
So
remember?
yeah, if we're seeing it, if we think there's going to be an increase, then perhaps we should look at increasing this account.
Matt, the estimate I had was about $240 to mail each one, and we talked about doing them quarterly.
Right. So
maybe this should be 1,500.
I'd make a motion to put this up to at least $1,000 because that will cover the 4 mailers.
Yep.
Maybe
And that's
1,500 is even better in case we do 2 others.
I would
leave it up to
second.
you, Jill,
Yeah.
whatever you think.
I mean, we could split the difference and do $1,250. That would cover it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll make a motion. We increase this to $1,250 to cover the cost of additional mailings.
I'll second.
Discussion? Can we get a roll call vote? Deborah?
Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
Jill Swayze,
Yes.
Anthony Lang.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we will adjust the budget to $1,250 for this account. Page 78. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Matt. And I was just going to say the printing, which I'm not sure which one that falls into, but it was about $215.
So that will come out of the other expenses. So when we get there, let's revisit that and see if we want to increase it. So advertising is $250. That's based on what we're actually spending. Page 79 is $1 for travel reimbursements. So this would be if any of you went to like the delegation, the NHSBA delegation, or did some sort of travel for school business. Historically, that's never occurred. So unless you think you'll be traveling over the next year, we were thinking of keeping it at $1. If you do, you'll still be reimbursed. Page 80, dues and fees. This is for NHSBA Association. Page 81. So this was that kind of catch-all and this is where the printing would fall under. We haven't really spent much in this account. Let me see.
What about also the NHSB, am I saying it right? The School Board Association. Right now their webinars cost money to attend. Do we have that covered in here somewhere? It's not much. I think it's $30 a webinar, but I know I did one and Rhonda had to put in for it.
Yeah, so that would come out of this account. So
Okay.
so if you attend any of those, please do. We encourage you to.
Yep.
Just submit for reimbursement to Rhonda, and it would come out of this account. So we, this account's kind of varied. So, I mean, last year you can kind of, it's a little, I mean, we lost a third of the school year. So that number is a little low at 487. The year prior, we spent 1,025. Now, the year before that, we spent $6,600 because that was marketing for the edition. So there's a significant number of like mailings and stuff like that, marketing that went out. So I guess it's dependent on how often you think you'll be sending marketing out.
So the mailers alone, I think, are going to be about $1,000, a little less for the newsletters, probably just under 1,000. It's hard to know what else we'd market, but I think I'd recommend raising this at least a little, so we have a little bit more in there, given that we are committing to these newsletters.
What would you like?
I mean, maybe just to add 500 to it.
Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make a motion to increase this to 2,000.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Deborah, can we
Second.
take a roll call?
Who did the second?
John was the second.
Okay, thank you. All right, Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Yes.
Jason Farias,
Yes.
Jill Swayze,
Yes.
and give me 1 second. Anthony Lang.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I will make that adjustment to $2,000. So now we're moving into SAU services, page 83, which is a slight decrease to $150,493. So this represents the SAU cost. So the Office of the Superintendent. It really reflects our our refined model to try to create a more collaborative, cooperative SAU where we work across the entire SAU instead of individual districts. You've seen that we've been able to implement some shared services, shared personnel, and we've recognized some pretty significant cost savings. And we hope to continue that and try to become a more unified SAU. You see that with our competency-based education initiative, as far as trying to align our curriculum across the SAU, our program reviews for we're starting off with math and world language, so that we can prepare all of our students in a similar fashion go up to Winnicott. You know, we're combining transportation routes with special education to minimize to share those costs. We've transitioned to direct billing for Medicaid across the SAU. You saw the significant savings that we recognize with our ESOL teacher that's shared across multiple districts. So these are the type of initiatives that you really really see the bang for your buck from the SAU level, and I really encourage that continued cooperation across all of our districts, as opposed to siloed discrete schools, which of course we make all of these initiatives with the intent to keep autonomy and our distinct culture of each individual school, because obviously we don't want to lose that component. So page 85, we've budgeted $119,236 for our principal salary. Page 86, we've budgeted $51,246 for our administrative assistants. Page 87 is $1 for maintenance of telephones. Page 88, we've level funded postage at $750. Page 89, we've level funded supplies at $2,000. Page 90, we've level funded dues and fees. So these are our professional associations for administrators at $550. Moving into buildings, page 92, we've budgeted $72,422 for our facilities manager salary. Page 93, we've budgeted $109,784 for our custodial facilities staff. Page 94, we have $1 for our custodial substitute account. So this is an account where we've reduced to $1 because when a substitute is necessary, we are currently providing that coverage from our existing staff. Level funded overtime at $1,500. So the overtime represents some of that coverage. It represents some emergency situations where we need our custodial staff on call. Those type of events. Page 96, we've budgeted $1 for consultants. So we have a consultant line item to in the case of a large project that's upcoming. So, for example, if we had, the building addition or a roof project, we have a roofing consultant that we utilize to evaluate the condition of the roof. That will provide bid specifications for us, particularly with roofs, because there's so much variability with the quality in the roofing industry. What the materials are, what the qualified vendors are. So there's those type of consultants that we use. In this case, we have no projects that warrant a consultant. This would be looking at 2022, 2023, because this is a consultant that we'd contract in 2021, 2022 for a 2022, 2023 project. So I know that's a little confusing. We're looking out multiple years, but that's what this account would be for.
So Matt, Matt, so if we got the HVAC system passed in March, that the consultants involved with that would be the funds for that are in the 2021 budget.
So any consultants for an HVAC project would be incurred this fiscal year. So
Okay.
so this year we have budgeted $5,000. So we can specifically for the HVAC, we have a partnership with Siemens, so they provided us consultation work free of charge for that HVAC project. So
I don't think anything's free of charge. I think it was we'll see that somewhere else. But
well, that's a misnomer because they want the controls. of that HVAC system. So they wouldn't be bidding on the project, but they want the service of it. So you're absolutely right. Of course, it's not free. There's always an ulterior motive. But we have an existing preventative maintenance contract with them. So they are looking to hopefully get our business in the future, additional business, absolutely.
Gotcha.
But they helped us design the specifications for that HVAC project, which we'll see later in this budget project. I mean, in this budget process, we are recommending the gymnasium HVAC replacement as a separate warrant article.
Great.
Oh, sorry, Matt, back to the previous page. Given what we discussed about the library before, is there any need to consider consultation on like library design? I mean, this is well outside my area, but I don't know if that's something that we should have on our radar.
I think, Jill, I think it's a fair question. I think we need to hear back from Beth after she talks to her team. And I think then we can talk about how we want to move forward with it. If we want to, depending on what we want to do, then do we reach out to some sort of a consultant to do that? But I think first we need to hear some ideas from Beth and her team. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, sure, I'm good with that.
And that's really will be determined on how extensive any type of redesign is. Like, so Northampton didn't hire a consultant. That was really spurred by the librarian. And she did a lot of the work and kind of designed it along with a committee. Now, if you're looking at doing some construction in the library, then we'd probably be looking at a consultant. But if it's more superficial and more design, that might be able to just be done in-house. But that's something that we're going to need to consult with the librarian, and that I'd suggest that we put together a committee to determine whether there is a need for a consultant. So, page 97, we budgeted $2,040 for trash removal. This increase, so there's been an increase in our composting costs, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen. I mean, trash costs have increased across the board for recycling, for composting. That's just been a large increase. Page 98.
I'm sorry, Matt. Can we go back to that for a minute?
Yep.
You're right. Here in town, we're having a lot of issues with that. Well, a lot of conversation about that. Is this enough to cover any potential increases?
So this is the pricing that Alan ascertained.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it can't increase further. I mean, we're looking a year out.
Right.
But I mean, he felt pretty comfortable with this number.
Okay.
So
fair enough. Thank you.
I hope it doesn't continue to go up, because I mean, particularly with recycling, we saw a huge increase. Page 98, we budgeted $260 for pest control. This aligns with our IPM plan. Page 99, we've level funded fire extinguishers at $4,000. So this reflects replacement of fire extinguishers, but also we need to do annual inspections and maintenance of fire extinguishers. Page 100, we've budgeted $76,472 for repair and maintenance. So this is our various maintenance contracts, as well as general building repairs and maintenance. So you'll see as well as inspections. So we have required inspections every year. So you'll see, we have our elevator inspection fee. And then we have a service contract. We have water operator certificate, etc. Page 101, we've budgeted $16,198 for our property and liability insurance. This is through Primex. Page 102, we've level funded supplies at $18,500. So these are our various custodial and facilities supplies. Page 103, we budgeted $45,124 for electricity. So this is a decrease. And this again, this is an SAU-wide initiative where we were able to negotiate down an SAU-wide electricity rate at a much lower rate. We kind of hit it at a great time. I think it was in February. It was kind of historical low. So I believe we locked ourselves into a 3-year contract. So we're in pretty good shape. Page 104, we've budgeted heating fuels at $27,950. Again, this is a negotiated SAU-wide rate. Page 105, we've budgeted $15,000 for renovations. So this reflects our ongoing LED upgrade project at $15,000. It's a multi-year LED replacement project. Typically with LED replacement, we've been seeing about a 3-year return, between rebates and cost savings with electricity, it's been just under 3 years, a return on investment. So that's really a no-brainer. Page 106.
Matt, sorry. Matt, back page this. If we were to do the sign, would that come out of this fund or a different one?
That would come out of this one, renovations. Let me just make sure. I would take it. I'd put it in renovations.
Okay. And what were the estimates that we got for that again? Was it 15 grand?
I believe it was between 15 and 20,000. Yep. We had some real numbers. So if that's something that the board would like to go forward with, we can certainly pull those numbers and include that here.
If we were to up this 15 grand to 30, does that still have us go down on the versus the default budget, or does that put us over the default budget?
So that will bring us, I'm just
27
looking at our other increases that we had today, because our differential was 28,000, so we'd still be under the default.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to. I don't know that I want to make a motion, but I just want to throw it out for a quick discussion. If we want to tack on 15 grand here and revisit that sign, and potentially spend less if we wind up doing something simpler, or not at all if we opt not to do it. But what's the board's comfort level for something like that?
I personally would feel more comfortable with that if we were also level funding the library and that art program. I don't know that in my perspective, the sign versus what we can do to leverage the $2,000 in those two programs versus the 15 on the sign.
Yeah, so Anthony, you're coming in a little bit late we had a lot of discussion around the sign before, wanting to upgrade the sign out front because it's actually our method of communicating to the broad public. So I get the optics that you're talking about, and I fundamentally agree with you, but that's why the sign, I think, is worthy of the discussion here. So, I think that it needs an upgrade. It sort of looks like an old drive-in kind of sign on the side of the building now. We wanted to upgrade it before. We hadn't done it yet, but we hadn't really killed the project either.
I don't know if the optics are good with us eliminating positions and then tacking on 15, 20 grand for a sign are really what we want right now.
Okay.
I'd rather focus on the HVAC. Do we need it? Absolutely. But that's just my personal take on that, John. I would even venture looking the board, have a discussion with donations. We've got some pretty, look what we did for the playground, folks. 15 grand compared to 95,000, what we wrote. I think it's worth well, first of all, the youngins here need to get up to speed on it, and then we should have a conversation as to what the community could do, which I think we're powerful. We could do something.
Jason, did you just refer to yourself as the youngins?
I know, right?
Yeah, I think he did. I like the retro sign.
John, I'm fully supportive of this, but I have to agree with some of the optics conversations. What I'd like to recommend to the board on this particular topic is maybe get it on next month's agenda. John, we can bring Anthony, Jason, and Jill up to speed on the conversations we've had for several months prior to them joining us on the board, and then maybe make a decision on that point to ask Matt to go out and get us some more concrete numbers. I agree with you, John. It's an opportunity to communicate with the residents of Hampton Falls, and we're losing that opportunity. But the optics right now might not be good. And if we're going to move forward, let's get some better information, if not more current information than we presently have. Just my suggestion.
That all sounds good.
So the other component or the other factor about this particular project is you could potentially utilize building maintenance expendable trust funds for the sign, or year-end funds. So maybe it's something where you see how this budget process goes, see how the voting goes, and then in April, you may, based on and how the economy is going, and then maybe make a decision in the April timeframe as to maybe making, maybe there's available funds out of this year's operating budget to utilize, or an expendable trust withdrawal.
Or a combination even.
Right. Yep.
But I think maybe starting that conversation over at next month's meeting, and just to educate again, Anthony, Bill, and Jason about the conversations we've had. You're right, John, that we've had a lot of conversations that they have not been a part of. So I'd like to bring them up to speed.
Well, that all sounds good. Thanks.
I will also say that this is the time to get support for a mass communication method, given the times that we're in. So I think they're definitely, to Jay's point, the community is probably interested in a way to know what's going on in town.
Okay, I'll get that on the agenda for next month.
And in the meantime, if someone can figure out where we put it, because that's a real challenge with this. We've had the companies come out. It's really not a great place to put the sign. That has the best visibility. So we were looking at double-sided and single-sided, but the way the traffic flow is with that road, it's very difficult. There's not really a great place. So,
and I think that should be part of the conversation, Matt.
Absolutely. All right. Page 106, we've level funded furniture at $6,400. So like when we're talking about the library improvements, any library furniture that we, might come forward with would come out of this account. Page 107, we budgeted $22,530 for equipment. So we're budgeting for a dehumidifier, a wet vac, some vacuum cleaners, and feminine product dispensers. Page 108, we've level funded training at $50. Moving into grounds, we've level funded snow removal at $20,000. Page 111, we budgeted $9,500 for lawn care and mowing.
Matt, why'd this go up so much?
Yeah, so we had a really low rate with our the landscaping company that we were utilizing last year, and they are no longer interested in servicing us. So we had to go out to bid for a new one. And the rates came up higher, not only because it's a new company, but also because it's a larger area. So now we have the whole outdoor learning area, learning classroom area around the parking lot. So there's more care that needs to occur.
And this includes the ball fields?
Yes.
Okay.
Page 112, we've budgeted $14,500 for grounds repair. So that's for mosquito control, turf care, general grounds repair, etc. Last year we had budgeted $5,000 for some additional landscaping. This year we do have some additional athletic field turf care that needs to occur. That kind of goes on a cycle. And then otherwise it's essentially the same.
Does that include, Matt, will that include both the baseball as well as the softball fields?
I believe it's both, but I
Okay.
can verify.
Please.
Page 113. Excuse me, just one second. We budgeted $1,576 for equipment. So this is so we have a need for some damaged player benches for our athletic fields, as well as some trash containers and a utility cart. So now we're moving into our transportation departments or budget. We budgeted $253,162. This is for our contract with First Students. This is the third year of a 5-year contract. Page 116, we budgeted $87,850 for our special education transportation. So this is for in-district and out-of-district transportation for students with special needs. Page 117, we've level funded athletic transportation at $5,500. Page 118, we've budgeted $6,155 for field trip transportation. You see where that comes from. We had budgeted $6,000, and then we went. I'm sorry, that's not accurate. This is based on historicals from previous years, so there's a slight increase. Page 119, we have $1 for other transportation. So if we had homeless students or foster students, that would come out of this account. Page 121 is our principal payment for our 2 bonds. One is the new addition, and the other is the Kensington Road property. Page 122 is the interest payment for those 2 bonds, $156,153. These are just the debt schedules. Then we move into employee benefits. So on page 124, we budgeted $591,128 for health insurance. So this represents a 3.4% GMR, which is the guaranteed maximum rate for health insurance premium. So that's a pretty low increase. Additionally, we have the reduction of 3 benefits packages with the changes in staffing. So that reflects that decrease, the $591,000. Page 127, we budgeted $20,250 for dental insurance. So there's no increase in premium rate. And then we have the 3 plan reductions. Page 128, we budgeted $3,561 for life insurance. Page 129, We budgeted $12,052 for, this is our long-term disability insurance. Page 130, we budgeted $258,610. So this is FICA for all of our employees' salaries. Page 131, we budgeted $596,803 for retirement. So this was that increase that I'd mentioned in my summary from the New Hampshire retirement system. So teacher or the employer contribution for teachers went up 3.22%, and the employer contribution for other staff employees went up 2.89%. So this is a pretty significant increase of $84,000.
Matt, do you foresee an increase like this in the coming years, or is it hard to say?
It's hard to say. I think it's likely that there'll be incremental increases. New Hampshire has an unfunded pension obligation. It's a fact, like many states.
It's a lot of money.
It's kicking the can down the road from year. This is decades in the making. So I think they'll probably, typically that they'll do an increase every 3 years.
Okay.
So that's the typical pattern. So I would expect, every 3 years there'll probably be small increases or potentially large ones like this one. So we'll see. It's hard to say how aggressive they'll get with that. Because it's something where they could start to address, or it could be something that they continue to push forward. So we'll pay for it eventually.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Sorry for the non-answer.
No, you answered it.
Page 133, we've budgeted $15,118. This is for our workers' compensation insurance. Page 134, we've level funded dues and fees at $600. So this is the fees we pay to administer our FSAs for our employees, as well as the HSA for the Luminos health plan. Then we move into the the transfer to food service, page 136. We've budgeted $20,000, which is a slight increase. So we have two funds. One is a general fund, and that's what we just finished. So that's that funds the operations of our school operations. Then we have our school nutrition fund, and that funds our school nutrition program. The general fund is funded via tax revenue that's assessed. The school nutrition fund, it's funded via, there's a portion that's funded via assessment, but it's primarily funded it's self-funded via sales of meals, as well as federal and state reimbursement for the national school, so free and reduced population for the national school lunch program. And essentially the school nutrition program is supposed to fund itself via that revenue. So if there's a deficit and they're unable to fund its own program, the general fund has to transfer funds into the school nutrition fund to cover that deficit. So with school districts like Hampton Falls, where there's a very low free and reduced population, there's always going to be a deficit because there's no way we're going to be able to fund the program based on the reimbursement levels. So that's what this is. That's my long-winded description of what this transfer is. It's to cover the school nutrition deficit. You'll also note last year, and I explained this during the year-end summary, but we had a $76,000 deficit, and that was a byproduct of being remote for a third of the school year. So we'd incurred costs essentially for the whole year, but but we only received revenue for 2/3 of the year. So that really exasperated our school nutrition deficit. We anticipate next year we'll go back to normal levels. So moving into the actual school nutrition program, we're budgeting $52,519 for the school nutrition director's salary, $53,213 for our food service workers. We have $1 for substitutes. Page 141, we've level funded repair and maintenance at $1,000. Page 142, we've level funded our non-food supplies at $2,000. So this would be like our paper goods, utensils, etc. Page 143, we've budgeted $40,000 for milk and food supplies. So this is the actual food that we're purchasing. And so there is a decline because we do anticipate less participation because we have less enrollment. Page 144, we've level funded USDA commodities at $6,000. So these are kind of our staple goods that we get through the USDA. And every dollar we spend here is reimbursed dollar for dollar from the USDA. So that's a wash. Page 145, so that's the spam, if you were interested. I'm just kidding. Cheese, bulk cheese. Page 145, we've funded equipment at $1,000. So this would be like pans, food processors, bowls, etc. Page 146, we've budgeted $1,800 in other expenses. So this represents, our buyers group that we're part of. So we're part of a buyers group to recognize some cost savings in bulk purchasing. We have some uniforms that we need to replace, certification, etc. So that brings us to the end of the operating budget. So we have a few outstanding items that we will get answers to. One being the baseball, softball fields, the Microsoft Office 365 software, and I think there were a few areas that the board questioned that you might want to relook at, and maybe we can readdress at our next budget meeting. So what I will do is I'll come at our next budget meeting is I'll come back with the revised budget with your changes, and then we can revisit those few items. And then at that point, we probably ask for a vote for the overall budget. So that brings us to, so there's the operating budget warrant, so that's one warrant article that the board will vote on. Then we have additional warrant articles. So this would be to fund our expendable trusts. This would be for any raise and appropriate warrant articles. We are recommending to not fund any of our expendable trusts this year, take the year off due to the economic conditions. However, we are suggesting that we bring forth the HVAC upgrade project for the gymnasium. We just feel that project is too important for the proper ventilation of that gymnasium. You see what happened this year. We're unable to use it's unusable this year because there's no ventilation. It's really for the health and safety of our students and staff. We feel it's important that we address this issue this year. So that is out to bid right now. We had put a number at 200,000, but we'll see what it actually comes in at. So we will bring that forward at a future board meeting for board consideration and vote. Unless I'm hearing from the board tonight that that's not something that you want to pursue. We will still get the pricing, but it's certainly up to the board whether you want to include this as a warrant article.
Greg, do we want to talk about a cost share between the a trust and a warrant article, or you know what I mean, or should we have a more lengthy discussion on this? How we want to work?
I think that we need to get the numbers back first, Jason.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's hypothetically say it comes in at that $200,000 for the HVAC that Matt mentioned there.
Yeah.
Then we can have a substantial conversation how we want to fund that. Do we want to go completely for a $200,000 warrant article, or do we want to help offset that with our building maintenance trust?
Okay, very good.
So I think we get the numbers, we can do that. And possibly, depending on how much money is left over in the budget.
So in the PowerPoint, if you go to the second to last slide, actually, I'll pull it right up. You'll see we have sorry about the formatting, but the current balance for building maintenance is just over $142,000. So we do have some available funds now. Now, obviously, I agree with Greg that we should wait until we get the locked-in pricing. We have a better idea of what this project is going to entail. But just to keep this in the back of your mind, we do have some funds via the expendable trust. I wouldn't recommend fully exhausting that trust, but I think we can pull a significant amount from that trust to go towards this project if that's something you'd like to move forward with.
Matt, am I missing something? Because on your supplemental information document, you've got the building expendable trust at 179.
Yeah, so that's my PowerPoint is more up to date. So
Okay,
if you recall, we just installed a new freezer refrigerator.
that's right.
In the
Okay, so
kitchen.
fine. Okay,
So that was, so we funded it via the expendable trust, but we have it just got complete, like we had a little like trim issues that we had to complete. So the project just got completed. So technically we haven't withdrawn the 55,000 from the trust, but I just reduced it. I that's what it's going to end up being. So
that's fine. And as long as we're talking about the trust, you're comfortable. Say, let's take the healthcare trust. You're comfortable not funding anything to that or any of the trust, really? I understand the optics component of it, but
yeah, so I mean this has been our approach actually across the SAU for expendable
Okay.
trusts. We just feel that, I mean, if we were in dire need, I mean, we have 213,000 in special education. Our building maintenance trust is right at the target. I mean, healthcare, I mean, we're not really approaching the target, but we just feel that this is the year to defer
okay.
these type of warrant articles. I mean, our communities are going to be struggling. I mean, there's going to be declining tax revenues, and then individual families are feeling financial effects. So we just felt it was prudent for us to skip this year.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And while we're still on the trust, should we have a target conversation for each of these, or do you want to defer that to another time as well?
So we can absolutely have that discussion. I mean, special education, we just increased last year.
Right.
And that's traditionally been based on a kind of a high cost out of district placement. And I guess the question is building. So from my perspective, I think if we wanted to make adjustments, we'd look at building maintenance and healthcare, if that's
Yes.
something you want to approach. Now, healthcare.
Can I interject for one quick second? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I interrupt you, Matt, but, and I agree, we should talk about all of them, and personally, I'm in favor of raising all of them. But I do think we might want to have this in a regular board meeting, just because I don't think much of the public is actually on with us at this point. And I think it's important optically also that we do this in front of the public.
So that being said, Matt, the one thing I'm not seeing in my calendar, when is our public hearing for the presentation of the budget?
So you don't have that in your calendar because we haven't set the date yet. So
That would
that
explain.
is that is my next question for you. We have 2 dates available, January 12th or January 13th. So you have a board meeting on January 12th. So I know in past years, sometimes we've done a very abbreviated board meeting and then gone into the public hearing. But that would mean that the board meeting would be like half an hour. So we do the board meeting at 6:30, do the public hearing at 7. Otherwise, so that'd be the 12th. Otherwise, the 13th would just be, it'd be a separate from the board meeting.
I can't do the 13th. I've got a policy committee meeting.
I'm
Well,
a big
we would
fan
do
of-
it after
I don't
that.
know.
Okay, you could do it after that. Yeah.
I know you. I mean, that'd be a fantastic night for you, but
I live for it, Matt. I really do.
Do we think there's too much to go over in January not to combine the meetings like we've done in the past? Because that works well for me personally.
We've always done it, John, and I don't have a problem continuing doing that.
I don't have a problem with it.
I
Be
don't,
my preference as well to have it all on the same night. So
Why don't we do that? And we'll try to keep the agenda for the 12th as light as possible.
One person who doesn't get an opinion on this is Bill.
Oh, aren't you funny? You want me to send him an email?
Did he drop off?
Huh?
Is he
He
not
did.
on here?
You did.
He's
Oh,
about an
okay.
hour ago.
I didn't mean to do that with. I thought he was on. So
I'm happy to let him know you said that, Matt.
I will say that to his face. So it's not. I thought I was saying it to his face.
He's going to have the night free. He can join.
I'm certain that he's going to be
Yeah.
bored and he's going to want
That's
to
right.
attend these meetings, right?
Log on anyway. Right.
Maybe a Winnicott board meeting. I'm sure he'll want to.
Oh, Matt.
Oh, Matt.
Anyway, so why don't we schedule it for the 12th?
All right. Thank you. All right. So that is all I have. So I mean, unless you have any questions now, in preparation for our next meeting, so we'll update the budget. I'll get the answers to those 2 outstanding questions. And otherwise, please, in your spare time, I know you enjoy reading these budgets, so please review further if you'd like, and come back with any additional questions. Our next board meeting, our next budget review meeting is scheduled for December 1st at 5:30.
So Matt and Greg, procedurally, based on the answers on some of the outstanding questions we had, we can still modify items in budget review meetings, right?
You can modify anything.
Okay.
And really, even after we vote on the overall budget, I mean, we'll ask you to vote for the budget on the 1st, just to get that vote in, so we can move forward to the public hearing and stuff. And because we'll need that vote for the public hearing. But you can make, at any board meeting, you can change the budget up until the deliberative session. So that is not. And actually, I mean, there's been changes at the deliberative session. I mean, that needs to come from a community member, but you can make a.
I've been at some of those.
Right.
Great, thank you. Because I do have a few questions that I'll email you. I don't want to. I need to noodle over all your material still.
Yeah, in the meantime, I mean, you don't have to wait until the meeting. Please feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. If I don't have the answer, I'll get the answer. Sometimes that
Okay.
actually works better so that we're prepared. I have the answer for the next meeting. So
Great. Thank you for this. This is really helpful. Been great.
no, thank you. I know that this can be a little monotonous, so I appreciate your time and attention. So.
Yeah, for both Matt and Beth and Dr. Garakilian, thank you very much. This is a really thorough budget. You guys put a lot of time and effort into it. The fact that
Agreed.
we're able to present something to town that's less than the default budget, I think is phenomenal. And Matt, you run an incredibly efficient meeting for a 150-page budget report.
I just would like to mention one thing. I know behind the scenes, a lot of work goes into this. We've already had several meetings, but I don't ever want to come across as not advocating for these kids. I just think in this economic climate, we tried to come in with the balance between keeping our school in a really progressive mode and paying attention to what's going on economically and what's happening to some families through this crisis. So I just want to put that out there.
No, I think you totally hit it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job.
I mean, nobody likes to cut budgets, but you know, I think we're thriving in this pandemic. Even we're still doing it, but you know, I just don't ever want to come across that way. Matt and I, it's like a marriage. We did all our fighting behind the scenes.
we make a good couple, Beth. Yeah, I really can't say what a great job Beth did putting together this budget, and Melissa for that matter. Because at every turn, they are looking out for the students' best interest, and really, so when we talk about prioritizing, you know, when we look at cuts, we're always looking student first. Like how does this impact our students and the learning experience? And that's where we try to prioritize, you know, non-curriculum, like wherever possible, so that if there are necessary cuts, it's not affecting our students. And ultimately, we're going to bring forward the budget that we feel is in the best interest of our community. So.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Great.
you.
You bet.
Greg,
So if no one has any additional questions for Matt, we have one more item on the agenda. Hopefully we can get it through pretty quickly. It's number 4, search committee representative. David, you still with us?
Yep, I'm there.
Okay, so,
Matt,
sorry, David. No, you and Caroline have been, I applaud you for sticking around. Anyway.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So we have 2 searches for the interim for the superintendent. First search is an interim role that will be headed up by the operations committee. I reached out to John. Unfortunately, John's got some work commitments, so he's unable to do it. The board and Jay, I apologize. I meant to reach out to you, Jay. You're the alternative. Can you participate in that search on the interim role?
Do we have to make a decision tonight, or can I talk to you about it? Or
David, what kind of a time frame are you on?
I'd like to be able to reach out to the full search committee tomorrow. I will give you though, Jason.
no, that day, I'll do that. That's fine. That's fine. I'd love to.
Okay, if it's helpful, just kind of 3 dates to put on your plate. One is December 4th. We hope to have a determination of the interviewees. The following week, the week after December 4th, which is it's like the 7th through 14th, we will conduct interviews. So that'll be sporadic, but we'll need a few periods in there. And then what we're trying to do, and this is for everybody, is on December 17th, have a joint board. And I believe Rhonda already sent out that invitation. That'll be a twofold process. One is hopefully we'll have a recommendation for interim, but 2 is we will be able to hear proposals for the permanent position and consultants associated with that.
Great.
And so the next thing we need to do is determine who from our board would like to represent us in the permanent search. David, would that begin in January?
That will begin hopefully, yeah, it's gonna have to be probably after January 4th, but right around then.
Okay. David, I sent out an email to the board kind of highlighting what the process was last time. Just to give you a 1,000-foot view here, the joint board hired a consultant. The consultant met with the joint board a few times to define what we were looking for in a superintendent, what characteristics we were looking for in a superintendent. Then the postings went out, resumes were collected. Then the search committee met with the candidates, narrowed it down, a couple interviews, went back to the joint board. Will that be the similar process used this time?
I believe, generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Obviously, we'll have to defer to the proposals from the consultants.
Okay, that's fine. That being said, Jay, you had indicated you might be interested in this last time. Jill and Anthony, you brought up some valid points. Your interim roles right now, I will leave that up to you as to whether or not you would like to participate in this. John, not sure where you stand on it. I'm more than happy to do this, but I'd love to hear feedback from the rest of you.
I have to be honest, and I don't think I have the bandwidth to contribute, what I think I would like to be able to contribute to it.
Mhm.
Obviously I'll follow the process and weigh in at meetings, but I don't think it's fair to take a seat.
That's fine. That's fine. And the joint board is very well informed each step of the way, Jill, but I appreciate that. I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be cautious for anyone who's up for re-election in March to be on the permanent search committee. Just in case something doesn't happen, either someone opts not to run or even opts to run but doesn't get elected. The concept of someone who's up in the air come March might be problematic on that search committee.
I was going to say something similar, and to that end, if it helps, like if Jason wanted to be on the permanent and it helps offload some of the temporary search, I'd be willing to step into that role, since that would be within term, if Jay wanted to be on the permanent, so he didn't have to handle both. So just as an alternative option, I have bandwidth in the next month and a half to handle that search if needed.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
That would work on this end as well.
So Jay, you'll do the permanent search, represent us for the permanent search?
If you'll have me.
Yeah, I will.
Great.
So moving forward then, Anthony, then you will represent us on the interim role. And Jay will represent us as a representative for the permanent role. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Yep. Just if David can send me those dates again, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anthony, I'll reach out to you tomorrow. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything we missing,
The
David?
youngins don't know what they're getting themselves into.
No, they don't.
That's why I went right for the one that was a month and a half.
them into a process.
You like that, Matt?
Yeah.
I did. You slow played them.
Like I couldn't tell the look of terror in Greg's face when John said it had to be someone that was already elected.
I want to opt out too.
Hey, Matt, you were there last time.
I know.
David, am I missing anything?
No, I've got what I need to move forward. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Anthony and Jason, thank you very much. That being said, Caroline, do we have anything, or David, anything for non-public?
We do not.
Okay. I think that's it. Can I get a motion to adjourn unless someone has anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Can I get
I'll
a second?
Okay. Greg Parrish,
Yes.
John Bailey,
Absolutely.
Jason Terrius,
An emphatic yes. Okay.
Jill Swayze,
Yes.
and Anthony Lang.
Yes.
8:30.
I won't take offense to that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Awesome work.
If you have any
Thank you,
if you have any
Beth.
questions,
Great
reach
job,
out.
Beth.
Have a good night. Thanks.